Hello and welcome back. So I'm out of the video studio and am in my office, and I want to show you how to use Microsoft Excel in order to analyze data. And first I want to mention that this is the Microsoft Excel that comes with the Office suite for a PC. If you have a Macintosh, you will have a version of Excel, but the buttons up here at the top are going to be in a different position. So everything that I'm going to show you can be done on a Macintosh, but you're going to have to learn how to find all the buttons for it. So what I'd like for you to do right now is you can pause me and then get onto a computer and open up Microsoft Excel. So then that way you can be doing the same thing that I'm doing, and you can see how to use all the buttons on there. Okay, have you done that? Okay. So it says that a student measures the distance a toy car travels and the amount of time it takes. The data is shown below. Graph the data, find its slope, and interpret what the slope means. Alright, what's the first thing that you notice about this? Well, I noticed that it's printing pretty small. So it's got an 11 for the font. So I'm going to change my font size. So if I go up to this triangle up here and click on that triangle, it's going to highlight everything. And then I'm going to change my font to, let's change it to, let's say, a 20. Okay, so that's much easier to read. Okay, the next thing is I noticed that this particular student didn't label anything. So they just wrote down their data, but they didn't label it. So we're going to have to do it for them. So up here, it turns out that this data in this column is going to be the amount of time that elapsed. So I'm going to type in the word time. And again, I'd like for you to be following along with me. Now we also want to abbreviate time, and so we're going to abbreviate time with the letter T. And then we need to put the units on there. So the units are going to be in seconds. So I can write out the word second, or I could abbreviate it with an S. So it's up to you however you want to do it. So I'm just going to do it that way. Okay, then over here, this column was the distance that the car traveled. So I'm going to put down distance, and then the abbreviation for distance is going to be the letter R, and then we're going to put in the unit, which is going to be the meter, which is again going to be abbreviated with an M, so I'll go ahead and put that in there as well. Okay, now what do you notice? That's still not very good, okay, because do you notice that these columns are too small? So if I was to grab it up here and then pull on it, I'm going to open it up a little bit, and then I'm going to do the same thing for this one. I'm going to grab this one and open it up. And so now I've got my two columns are about the same size. Okay, now what do you notice? Well, it still doesn't look very pretty. Now it's perfectly okay, you know, to turn in your data like this, but we want to make it pretty. Okay, so I'm going to highlight everything, and then right here where it says alignment, I'm going to click on the middle one, and then that's going to center everything, so that looks better. Okay, but I can do better than that because I think I'm going to put a box around it. So I'm going to put a box around all of this, and then up here, if you click on there, this is your borders. And I've got the one for thick outside border highlighted, so that when I click on it, you see it gave me a border. And then I'm going to put in another one. So I'm going to go like this and put in another border, and then I'm going to put in one more like this. So now my data table is starting to look better. But I could do some more stuff to it. I'm going to have it be a different color. So I'm going to highlight my data, and then where the paint can is, I'm going to click on, let's say, yellow. So I can change it to any color that I want, but I'm going to go with yellow. So that makes it look pretty. And then I'm going to make this up here, let's pick a different color. So how about purple? But what do you notice when you made it purple? It's kind of hard to read. Okay, so let's highlight it again. Let's go to the paint can and go to more colors, and then what I can do is lighten it up. So if I go up to there and then click on OK, you see now it made it a lighter purple, so it's easier to read. Okay, so now we've got our data. So now we want to graph it. So this is really the guts of Microsoft Excel, is its graphing capabilities. Now notice that I did not say 0.5 meters. I did not put the units in here because the computer cannot graph that. So the computer can only graph numbers. And so that's the reason why you put the units up here and you don't put the units in here. So I've had students that they put the units here and then they complain that the computer can't graph it because it doesn't understand what the letters mean. So we're going to highlight the data. So notice, don't highlight, don't do this. So don't highlight the whole thing. So you just want to highlight the data and then go up here to where it says Insert. So I'm going to click on Insert, and then here's all the different things I can insert over here. And I want a chart, and it's this one. So it's a scatter. So this one right here is the one we want to do. And now we've got our choice, you know, what kind of graph do you want to have? Well, I want one that shows the data points. And it connects it with a smooth line, not straight lines. See, that one made straight lines that connected the data points. So we want this one. Okay, now next is I want the chart to be as big as possible because you want to be able to show this to somebody else. So I'm going to make the chart larger. And I could even pull it down here if I wanted to, but then it would obscure me. So I'm just going to leave it like that. All right, now you want to label your chart. Don't ever turn in a chart that is unlabeled. So you need to label it. So here's the chart title. So what do you think would make a good title for this? So it says the student measures the distance a toy car travels. So how about we say distance versus time of a toy car. You can call it anything that you want, but some kind of a descriptive title for it. And then the next thing is we need to label the up and down part, and we need to label the sideways part. So I'm going to go over here to chart. Okay, it's already set. So when you see chart design has been clicked on, and over here to the side it says add chart element. So I'm going to click on that, and then axis titles. And then let's do, so if I click on that, I get the horizontal. So I'm going to click on the horizontal title. And what is it? Well, you notice the numbers are going from 0 to 10 on the horizontal. So if we go back over here to our data, which column is that if it's going from 0 to 10? That's this column here, so that meant the sideways part is time. So I'm going to type in time, and then T, and then second. All right, now we want to do the vertical. So can you do that? How do you do it? So we're going to go over here to add the chart element, axis title, primary vertical, and then click on it. And then let's put in our type. So this is going to be the distance that the car traveled. It's going to be, distance is going to be abbreviated with the letter R. And then the unit is going to be meter. So let's go ahead and put in a bracket and then meter. Or you could just put in M if you want for meter. Okay, now one other thing I'd like to do is, again, it's hard for me to read this stuff. So what you can do is go back to home, and then let's go back to this and highlight it, and then let's change the font. So I'm going to change the font to, let's say, a 24, and then I'm going to change the font on this to something a little less than 24. So let's change that one to, let's say, a 20. And then let's go over here and let's do the same thing on this. God, this one's kind of tricky. You know, that moved it. All right, so there. And then we were using a 20. Excuse me. There. I need a broom so that I can wave it to get my automatic lights to come back on. I think it's the room's way of trying to get me to leave, but I'm not. I'm going to stay here. All right, so now that looks a little bit better. All right, now we're ready to analyze the data. So I'm going to click on a data point, and then I'm going to do a right click, not a left click, but a right click with the mouse. And now I'm going to go down to here where it says Add Trend Line. So click on the Add Trend Line, and you should see this little dotted line right here. That's the computer's best guess as to the graph that represents the data if it was linear. So over here it says the word linear. Now let's try it. Let's assume that it was an exponential. So let's click on exponential up here. So does that look good? No, it doesn't look good. So it's not an exponential. And let's try the logarithmic. That doesn't work either. Let's try the polynomial. Well, polynomial doesn't really look too bad, but it's not right. Power, same thing. It looks pretty good. And then moving average, no, that doesn't look good. So I'm going to go back up here to linear. It turns out that the correct answer is linear. And then go down to here to where it says display equation on the chart. Display equation on the chart. Now, one problem my students have run into is if they've got a little computer screen, this part here gets cut off, but then there's a bar over here to the side, and then if you pull down on that bar you can see what's underneath this stuff here. So I'm going to click on display equation on the chart, and there's my equation. But what do you notice about it? It's really small. So again, we can highlight it and we can change its font. We can actually change the font right here. So let's change it to an 18. So there is the equation that represents this straight line. Now let's write over here, what is the equation for a straight line? So y is equal to mx plus b. So that's, you should learn that from geometry. So y is the up and down part. So y is going up and down, and then x is going sideways, and then b is the slope intercept. So where this thing, if you kept it going and down, where would it touch the y-axis? So that's going to be the b. And now if we look at this, you notice that this thing here is the b. And do you see how small it is? Well, that's because it would represent how far would the car travel before you click your stopwatch. Well, it wouldn't travel at all. So at time t equals 0, it shouldn't have moved. So that means that this should have intercepted at 0, 0. So that, you notice this is pretty close to being 0. So I'm going to ignore this. Okay, and I'm just going to say here that y is equal to 0.3117 and then x. Okay, now we want to interpret, what does that mean? Okay, now y is the up and down part. So what is the up and down part? It's the distance. So instead of the letter y, I'm going to put in the letter r for distance. Equals, okay, now let's go ahead and keep this 0.3117. And instead of the letter x, what should I put? It's the sideways part, and the sideways part was time. So I'm going to put t for time. Okay, now what's the significance of that? So could we take this equation here and then rearrange it so that it says 0.3117 is equal to what? So do some algebra on that and rearrange it, and what do you get? You would get r divided by t, distance divided by time. So what's the significance of distance divided by time? So think of your speedometer on your car. So the speedometer on your car might say miles per hour, or it might say kilometers per hour. So miles is distance, hours is time, so therefore distance divided by time has to be speed. So what we have just figured out is that the slope of this graph is the speed of the toy car as it was traveling. And then also, let me just write over here to the side, slope equaled 0.3117. What units should I put for slope? So slope is rise over run. So the rise was in what units? Meters. And then the run was in the units of seconds. So meters per second. So what we've just figured out is that the slope of a distance versus time graph is going to be the speed of the object, and then we figured also out what the units are going to be for it. Alright, so this shows you the power of Microsoft Excel. So the main thing that you should have gotten out of this was how to take the data and then do the insert and then graph it. Okay, but then you learned an awful lot about how to make the numbers bigger, how to change the colors, how to put boxes around stuff, how to make it look neat so that it looks very professional when you turn it in. Alright, so that was our little lesson on Microsoft Excel, and so stay tuned, and in our next lesson we're going to talk about calculators. So until then, goodbye.